Vikings. The word alone conjures images of fierce warriors, legendary gods, and vast journeys across treacherous seas. But who were these mysterious people beyond the legends? Join us as we dive into the heart of Viking society, exploring their roots, beliefs, way of life, rich cultural traditions, and the myths that shaped their world. This is the story of the Vikings, more complex and captivating than you've ever imagined. The roots and origin of the Vikings. Our journey begins in the cold, rugged landscapes of Scandinavia, modern-day Norway, Sweden, and Denmark. The Vikings, also known as Norsemen, lived in small, tight-knit communities. These isolated settlements were bound together by common ancestry, language, and customs, but each region had its own unique practices. Life in Scandinavia was demanding. The long winters and short summers forced the Vikings to become self-sufficient and resourceful. The Viking society was structured around a tribal system. At the top were the Jarls, the noble class, who often owned large estates and held political power. Below them were the Carls, free farmers and tradesmen, who made up the majority of the population. At the bottom were thralls, or slaves, who were typically captured in raids or born into servitude. Despite the hierarchy, Viking society had a surprising degree of social mobility, and it was possible for thralls to earn their freedom or even become respected members of the community. Beliefs, myths, and Norse cosmology. Religion was a vital part of Viking life, deeply rooted in a complex mythology that shaped their understanding of the world. Norse cosmology was centered around Yggdrasil, the world tree, which connected 9 realms, each with its own inhabitants and characteristics. The Vikings believed that everything was interconnected through Yggdrasil, from gods and giants to humans and mythical creatures. The gods and goddesses. The Vikings worshipped a pantheon of gods led by Odin, the All-Father and god of wisdom, war, and death. Thor, his son, was the protector of humanity and wielded Mjolnir, his famous hammer. There was also Freya, the goddess of love, beauty, and fertility. And Loki, the trickster god known for his cunning and unpredictable nature. Each god represented forces in nature and human emotion, and the Vikings believed they could influence events through rituals and sacrifices to gain the gods' favor. The afterlife. The Viking afterlife was equally complex. Warriors who died heroically in battle were believed to be taken by the Valkyries to Valhalla, Odin's Grand Hall, where they prepared for the final battle of Ragnarok. Others were believed to go to Hel, a realm ruled by the goddess Hel, which was not a place of torment but a quieter existence. The belief in these different realms inspired courage on the battlefield and resilience in everyday life, as death was seen as part of an eternal cycle. Viking villages and daily life. Life in a Viking village was communal and heavily dependent on each individual's role. Houses were typically made from wood, sod, and stone, with thatched roofs and a central hearth. This hearth was the heart of the Viking home, where families would cook, gather, and tell stories. Roles and responsibilities. Viking men were typically responsible for hunting, farming, and trading, while women managed the household, farm animals, and children. However, Viking women enjoyed more rights and respect compared to women in many other societies of the time. They could inherit property, file for divorce, and in rare cases, even lead in battle. Children were taught essential skills early, learning to work with animals, use tools, and eventually fight if they were boys. Education and storytelling. Although the Vikings did not have a formal education system, knowledge was passed down through oral traditions. Storytelling was a respected skill, and sagas, epic tales of gods, heroes, and ancestors, were shared around the hearth. These sagas preserved history, taught moral lessons, and connected each generation to their past. Viking warriors, raids, and battle culture. The Vikings are best known as fierce warriors, and raiding was integral to their culture and economy. Driven by both necessity and the desire for wealth and honor, Viking raiders traveled across Europe, leaving their mark from the British Isles to the shores of North Africa. Weapons and armor. Viking warriors were equipped with swords, axes, spears, and shields. Their helmets, often simple in design, did not actually have horns. This is a myth from later times. Warriors would carve designs and symbols on their shields to represent their clan and intimidate enemies. Berserkers. One of the most fearsome aspects of Viking warfare was the Berserkers, a group of warriors who fought with a frenzied rage that made them nearly unstoppable. Berserkers were said to channel the spirit of animals like bears or wolves, going into battle without armor and striking fear into their enemies. Historians believe this may have been achieved through intense psychological training or even hallucinogenic herbs, but the effect was legendary. Cuisine, feasting, and preserving food. The Viking diet was simple yet hearty, and feasts played a significant role in their culture. They ate what they could farm, hunt, or gather, including fish, pork, and beef, as well as grains like barley and oats. Vikings were skilled at preserving food through smoking, drying, and fermenting, which helped them survive harsh winters. Viking feasts were held to celebrate important events like seasonal changes, marriages, and victories. During these gatherings, ale and mead flowed freely, and music from harps and lyres filled the halls. Feasts were not only about food but also about reinforcing bonds within the community. These gatherings were an opportunity for storytelling, reinforcing alliances, and strengthening social ties. Viking exploration and the quest for new lands. The Vikings were among the greatest explorers of their time. Their longships, designed for both speed and maneuverability, allowed them to travel vast distances. They reached as far west as North America, establishing a settlement at L'Anse aux Meadows in present-day Canada, around 500 years before Columbus. Navigational skills. Viking navigators used a variety of tools, including sunstones, crystals that helped locate the sun's position on cloudy days. They also relied on natural signs, like the behavior of birds and the direction of waves. This knowledge allowed them to cross open seas with remarkable accuracy, discovering new lands and establishing trade networks that spanned continents. Viking art, runes, and spiritual practices. The Vikings were not just warriors but also talented artisans. They created intricate jewelry, weapons, and household items, often decorated with animal motifs, knotwork, and scenes from Norse mythology. These designs were more than just decoration. They were expressions of cultural beliefs and a connection to their gods. Runes and magic. The Vikings used a writing system known as runes, which were not only a means of communication but also believed to hold magical power. Runes were often carved into amulets, weapons, and buildings to invoke protection, strength, or good fortune. Magic, known as seer, was practiced by a select few, including the Volva, a type of Norse shaman. They performed rituals to predict the future, communicate with spirits, and influence events. For the Vikings, the spiritual and material worlds were deeply interconnected. The legacy of the Vikings. The Viking legacy lives on, especially in Scandinavia, where festivals, reenactments, and Viking-themed events are celebrated to this day. The Norse myths and sagas recorded after the Viking Age have inspired literature, art, and even modern popular culture. But their legacy goes beyond stories. The Vikings were innovators, explorers, and skilled craftsmen who left a lasting mark on the world. The Viking spirit of exploration and resilience continues to inspire people around the globe, reminding us of an era when courage and curiosity led to remarkable discoveries. Whether through history books, genetic studies, or Viking-inspired media, the Norse legacy remains a fascinating part of our shared heritage. The Vikings were a people of complexity and resilience, bridging the natural and supernatural, the fierce and the creative. As we look back on their lives, we gain insight into a culture that valued honor, courage, and connection to the land. The world of the Vikings is far more than the fierce legends we hear in stories. They were explorers who braved the unknown seas, artisans who transformed metal and wood into stunning works of art, and believers in a mystical world where gods, spirits, and nature were inseparably linked. Their culture was one of courage, honor, and resilience, a way of life crafted in the harsh landscapes of Scandinavia and shared with the farthest reaches of the world. Today, their influence can be felt across history, from the stories that echo through sagas to the adventurous spirit that still drives exploration and discovery. The Vikings remind us of an era when every journey was a test of endurance, every decision a call to bravery, and every moment a dance with the unknown. Their lives hold lessons for us in strength, adaptability, and the relentless quest for knowledge. As we look back on these ancient seafarers and storytellers, we see a society that was both grounded and mystical, fierce yet compassionate, and always searching for more, whether through trade, exploration, or a connection with the divine. They left behind more than myths. They left a legacy of adventure, mystery, and a reminder that we, too, are part of a great journey through the ages. If you've enjoyed this journey into the Viking world, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell for more deep dives into the ancient mysteries, myths, and cultures that shaped our world. Thanks for watching, and we'll see you on the next adventure.